speak. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, we've done this as an awards banquet, and one of the advantages of an awards banquet is we typically have many of the recipients in attendance so that they can say a few words in some of our major awards. So we do, in fact, have them in attendance today virtually, and so when we get to various awards, I will introduce some of the award winners to say a few words as well. Beginning with the virtual awards ceremony or presentation, I want to acknowledge past American Rose Society presidents. This is a picture that was taken at my installation as president back in 2018 in October at the San Diego Rose Society Convention. And you see Jeff Wykoff, myself, Marilyn Welland, Jolene Adams, immediate past president Pat Shanley, and our president emeritus, Dr. Jim Herring. I noticed from the board of who's in attendance today is most of them are in fact in attendance today as well, as they continue to contribute service to the American Rose Society. We're going to start the presentation with the 2021 Award of Excellence winners. 1973, the American Rose Society Board of Directors established the Award of Excellence to recognize new miniature and mini floral roses of superior quality and marked distinction. And since the inception of the award, there have been 132 Award of Excellence winners. Here, for example, is one of the 2019 winners, also Easy Urban Legend, a miniature rose by Chris Warner. The miniature and mini floral roses, which have been in commerce for less than 1 year, as well as unnamed seedlings or sports, are eligible for evaluation for 2 to 3 years in 8 Award of Excellence public test gardens and 2 private gardens spaced geographically across the United States. Each public garden has an AOE supervisor and 5 evaluators who score the entries on 11 criteria 4 times during each growing season. This is another, the 2019 award winners, Children's Hope, which was actually entered as a miniature rose in the Award of Excellence garden and later introduced as a polyantha since it somewhat straddles the line between the two. Dr. Jim Herring, who I acknowledge for providing much of this information and is with us today, is the chairman of the ARS Miniature Mini Floral Rose Committee, and he compiles the evaluations and then submits them to the committee for consideration. I've served on the committee for many years, and Jim does an absolutely outstanding job in maintaining this and the administration of this committee. The ARS Miniature Mini Floral Rose Committee then determines the awards from the evaluation submitted. This is one of the 2020 winner, Baby Bumbles, a miniature rose from Michael Birmingham and Andrew Devick. The 2021 Award of Excellence winners begin with Cupid's Kisses. This is a miniature rose, medium pink, 2021, hybridized by Christian Bedard, the hybridizer of Weeks Roses, the first of the 2021 Award of Excellence winners. The second Award of Excellence winner is Oh So Easy Double Pink, a medium pink miniature rose introduced by Alan Maillard of the Maillard family of roses, presumably to be introduced through Star Roses that introduces the Maillard roses. And it is, as you can see, a beautiful pink double rose. And the final 2021 Award of Excellence winner, rose by the name of Rachel Marie, a miniature rose, dark red, introduced by Richard Anthony. Further information on the winners, Dr. Herring typically puts together an article, and we'll have an article in the American Rose magazine that gives further details about these winners, and you look forward to seeing that. We turn to the 2020 Miniature Mini Flora Hall of Fame honorees. Since its creation in 1999, the American Rose Society Miniature and Mini Flora Rose Hall of Fame has honored those miniatures and mini floras that have stood the test of time and commerce for at least 20 years, recognizing excellence and longevity. Each year, a call for nominations is printed in the American Rose, posted on the ARS website, and distributed to bulletin editors. Here is a 2019 Hall of Fame introduction awardee, and that is the Rose Arcanum, introduced by Robbie Tucker. This year, 150 nominations were received from 30 Rosarians, and 49 different varieties were nominated. The ARS Miniature Mini Flora Rose Committee determines the honorees from the nominations submitted. And since 1998, there have been 48 miniature and mini flora roses inducted into the Hall of Fame. There is another 2019 inductee into the Hall of Fame, the Miniature Rose Popcorn by Dennis and Maury. The inductees for this year for the Hall of Fame begin with Dancing Flame. Dancing Flame is a miniature rose, yellow blend, as you can see. It is an outstanding exhibition rose. I actually have a backstory on this, is that I named this rose. We have a friend who we used to refer to as Dancing Flame, and I keep a list of roses, rose names that, ideas that come to me as rose names, and I had Dancing Flame on my list, and Robbie Tucker sent me a picture of this before it was introduced and said, "What do you think of that?" And I looked at it and I said, "Boy, that'd be a great rose to be called Dancing Flame." He said, "Well, you mind using the name?" I said, "I don't have a rose that I've hybridized that would fit that name." And so he named it Dancing Flame. And now, 20 years later, it is introduced into the Miniature Hall of Fame. I still grow this rose because it is still an outstanding exhibition rose. The second introduction for the Hall of Fame is Linville. It is a miniature rose introduced in 1990 by Dennis Bridges. As you can see, it is a white exhibition style rose. Dennis is responsible for several Hall of Fame introductions, including the rose Incognito, and there are several others that he introduced, this being his latest in the Hall of Fame. The great rose breeder Hans Seville, Norris Miniature Roses, introduced the rose Sensational. Sensational is now inducted into the Miniature Mini Flora Hall of Fame. As you can see, it is a mauve rose, and it is distinguished by the fact that it is extremely fragrant. It's also distinguished by the fact that this is the rose that went on the space shuttle into space as part of a fragrance test or survey that they were undertaking. And so this is the only rose that has ever gone into space, and it is also an excellent exhibition rose, as you can see, and is now in the Hall of Fame. The final introduction to the Hall of Fame is the rose Old Glory. Frank Benadello, an outstanding breeder of miniature roses, very good friend of mine for many years, introduced this back in 1988, also an excellent exhibition rose, and now introduced and inducted into the Hall of Fame. Again, further details on these will be set forth in the article that Dr. Herring will submit in the American Rose magazine. And the fifth one, I keep overlooking this one, which is odd because it's probably, I still grow this rose. In fact, there's a picture from this year in our garden. Solar Flare, another mini, this is the Mini Flora from Frank Benadello, inducted into the Hall of Fame. Superb exhibition rose, and I continue to grow it as I indicated. I mentioned in my president's report presidential citations. These are issued at the discretion of the president of the American Rose Society. They may be issued to local rose societies and others in commemoration of important events and anniversaries. They may also be issued to individuals to recognize extraordinary service to the American Rose Society and the rose. Here is an example for of presidential citation that I gave to the Greater Palm Beach Rose Society in commemoration of their 50th anniversary. So if those of you have watching have events that you believe ought to be commemorated, please let me know, and I'd be very pleased to provide a presidential citation. Today I have several of them that I am going to award, and they begin with a citation to Diana Kilmer. Diana Kilmer is a very good friend of mine, has been a friend for many years. She moved to Colorado and undertook the project of sponsoring and hosting a national convention. And that was the national convention in Colorado Springs, originally scheduled in June, that had to be rescheduled to August and then had to be canceled as a result of the COVID pandemic. So it's hard enough to put together a convention, but to put together a convention that had to be moved and then canceled. Diana has done extraordinary work on it, and I'm pleased to give her, as it's a small token of our appreciation, a presidential citation. And the other half of that great team is Walt Kilmer, who it says here, in grateful recognition of your outstanding service in support of the American Rose Society National Convention. I originally had asked for a list of who the various chairs were, and and Walt's just everywhere, and that's the Walt that I know, who doesn't have the word no in his vocabulary when it comes to helping, and he just did enormous things in order to try to pull this convention off. I'm also awarding a presidential citation to Dave and Jerry Mahoney. Dave and Jerry Mahoney are our national chairs of the National Consulting Rosarian, and I recognize them for their outstanding service to the American Rose Society in the planning and the execution of the first virtual consulting Rosarian seminar and school. We've heard a lot about it, how successful it was. What you didn't hear is how much work went into this. Dave and Jerry were absolutely an enormous amount of work, and we went over that, and to pull this off and have it be pulled off as beautifully as they did, an extraordinary achievement, and I'm pleased to present them a presidential citation. I also am awarding a presidential citation to Bill Kozemczek, in grateful recognition of his outstanding service to the American Rose Society as guest editor of the 2019 American Rose Annual. I still remember when I approached him at the Gettysburg Convention and said, how would you like to do an annual? And I didn't even think I said that. I think I said, you're going to do an annual, because I know that Bill doesn't ever say no when you ask him to do things, and I knew he'd do a superb job, and he did a superb job. And so as a small token of my appreciation for the outstanding work that he did on the annual, I offer him this presidential citation. I'm also issuing a presidential citation to a past president, which may be a first. But this is to Marilyn Wellen, in grateful recognition of your outstanding service to the American Rose Society in the planning, launch, and editorship of the America's Rose Garden Journal. If you haven't seen this journal yet, you need to see it. Her first two issues were absolutely beautiful. I expect it to continue. It is a wonderful addition to our publications at the American Rose Society. She invented it, she dreamed it up, and she made it happen. And I'm pleased to give her a citation of my appreciation for having done so. And the last one I'd like to give is a citation to Dan Keel. Dan served for many years during my years as vice president. He was the answer man at the American Rose Society website. You ask a question at the American Rose Society website, the question went to Dan. And if he knew the answer, he'd provide the answer, and he had a whole stable of people, including me, who he would refer the question to. Marilyn mentioned we had received an inquiry from the Honor Guard Society, the Honor Guard of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That question actually came to the ARS answer, the website, and Dan flipped it over to me, and then I picked up the ball and ran with it there. And so Dan did extraordinary service at this, and I very much appreciate it, and we all appreciate it. And for that, I give him a presidential citation for his years of service as an answer man. I now have a special presentation. my special presentation, and those of you who have been involved in the American Rose Society for a long time, you'll recognize that Carol Spears has been here forever. She was here when Abraham Lincoln was the president of the American Rose Society, or at least the president of the country, and well, only 42 years of service. And at the ARS Fall 2019 conference in Franklin, Tennessee, I proclaimed October 3rd, 2019 as Carol Spears Day in recognition of her then 42 years of service to the American Rose Society. And we presented her this beautiful proclamation. And thereafter at the awards banquet, she received a photograph of a rose called Carol Spears. Curtis Almiller did tremendous work in hitting up all the directors to contribute to that project, and we all contributed to it so as to get Carol Spears a rose named after Carol Spears. The problem is that the rose was never delivered, nor of its whereabouts known. We don't know what ever happened to the Carol Spears rose. So I got to talking with our executive director, John Cork, and I said, we really need to remedy this situation, and we got to get a Carol Spears rose. And John says, well, yeah, we should. And he said, and by the way, Carol's favorite color is orange. I said, oh, well, that's good. So let me see what I can find out. Well, as I was putting together Horizon Roses, Rose came across a photograph of a rose that hybridized by my good friend, Ray Guilbeault. And I looked at it and I said, wow, we have here an orange rose. And so I'd like to introduce you to an orange rose. This is the rose Carol Spears, a mini Flora rose, orange blend 2021. The rose exists. The mother plant of it was hand delivered by Ray Guilbeault to Jim Mills at K&M Roses for propagation. And as soon as we get one propagated that's a decent size, we will be sending it to Carol, and this rose will become available. A beautiful orange rose honoring, recognizing the many years of experience and by Carol Spears. And Carol will now see why it is that I've been hiding this presentation from her throughout our work preparing for this this conference today, because this is the surprise of the day. I want to turn to our Roses in Review survey. I mentioned this in my presidential message, and we mentioned this throughout today. The survey is currently underway. The online survey will close at 5 p.m. on September 26th. We urge everyone to use the online system because it's safe, it's easy, it saves from having to transcribe written forms. Please take the time, do it today, do it tomorrow to report on all the varieties you grow in the survey. In 2019, we had, as I've mentioned in my report, an excellent survey, and I do wish to recognize those who were tops in reporting. The 2019 tops in reporting for Roses in Review goes to the NCNH District, Jerry Georgette, the coordinator of Roses in Review. The outstanding reporter, the highest ratio of reporters to ARS members, goes to the North Central District, Margaret Barr, the Roses in Review coordinator. Thank you for your extraordinary work. And a special contribution, special recognition goes to our executive, John Corkin, who designed and implemented this reporting system on Google Forms. And so Don Swanson and I felt that John should be recognized for his extraordinary contribution to the 2019 Roses in Review survey. The Roses in Review ratings are used in the handbook for selecting roses. This handbook has been published for I don't know how many years. I recall when I planted one of my very first rose gardens, the handbook that I used in selecting roses, I've used it every year, as I have a collection of them going back to for as many years as I've been involved in the American Rose Society. So the importance of the Roses in Review ratings is shown very much here in this handbook for selecting roses that is published each year by the American Rose Society. Each year we have the Members' Choice Award. This is an award that actually was the brainchild of Marilyn Welland when I was on the board, and and she suggested it to me. My contribution to it was I told her I thought it was a good idea. It's turned out to be an excellent idea. Each year, the Roses and Review coordinators evaluate or look through the evaluations of the roses that are in their last year, the Roses and Review program, and select a rose that is basically one that has done well throughout the country, that has gotten high reports, and that ought to be recognized as the Members' Choice Award. In giving programs throughout the country, I often recognize and point out the Members' Choice Award because my experience in growing every one of these roses is that they are all outstanding. And if you want any place to start growing roses, start with the Members' Choice Awards and you can't go wrong. They include, for example, Gemini in 2005 and the miniature rose Bee's Knees in 2006. Hot Cocoa in 2007 was the Members' Choice Award. 2009 Members' Choice Award was Julia Child, the superb yellow Floribunda. We have the 2010 Members' Choice Award, Home Run, which I have often described as knockout with a bloom. Cinco de Mayo is the 2011 American Rose Society Members' Choice Award. Joy, the superb miniature rose by David Clemens, was the 2012 Members' Choice Award. Easy Does It, 2013 Members' Choice Award. Randy Scott, the superb white exhibition rose, the 2014 Members' Choice Award. These are all listed in the handbook in the section of the Members' Choice Awards, so you go back and look at them. The 2015 Members' Choice Award was Dick Clark by Tom Carruth and Christian Bedard. Michael Williams' great mini Flora, Cooper, was the 2016 Members' Choice Award. 2017 Members' Choice Award went to Oh My, a superb Floribunda from Christian Bedard. Daddy Frank, an excellent miniature rose from Robbie Tucker, was the 2018 Members' Choice Award. Last year's Members' Choice Award is a superb Grandiflora, South Africa from the Cordes. And I love this rose, and it was just a great rose, and that's the rose that was on the cover of last year's handbook for selecting roses. This year, the Members' Choice Award 2020 goes to the rose Olivia Rose Austin, a shrub, medium pink, very double, hybridized by David Austin, named for his granddaughter, Olivia Rose Austin. Absolutely, this is the picture, by the way, from the catalog of David Austin roses. My experience in growing this rose is if you're making notes today about what rose you want to put in your garden, this is the one you want to make a note about because it is an absolute outstanding rose. What about fragrance? You know, I like to put this quote up from time to time because it is rubbish. This idea that over the years the flower breeders have worked to breed flowers that live longer in a vase and have inadvertently bred out scent is simply untrue. You'll say, well, wait a second. Why is it that so many old garden roses are fragrant? And the answer is because they're still in commerce. If you have an old garden rose that is very fragrant, it tends to stay in commerce because it is very fragrant, which thus gives the sense that all old garden roses are fragrant. It's not true. Fragrance is a recessive characteristic of breeding roses. It is difficult to come up with a fragrant rose, speaking as a hybridizer. And knowing the hybridizers, I guarantee you they all smell their roses. And the one who probably does more smelling of roses is the David Austin group, who produce 100,000 roses a year in terms of their seedlings. And how is it that they come up with so many wonderful fragrant roses? They come up with it because they smell them. And the ones that are really highly fragrant are ones that are favored for introduction. Recognizing the fragrance is fact, and you hand somebody a rose, the first thing they do with a rose, they stick their nose in it. First thing I do with the rose. And that being the case, I had felt that a good addition to the Members' Choice Award would be to make a Members' Choice Fragrance Award, because we ask in the Roses and Review survey for indications of fragrance. And Don Swanson picked up my idea, and we in fact introduced and had a fragrance award in 2018. The ARS Members' Choice Fragrance Award went to Neil Diamond. Beautiful hybrid tea introduced by Tom Carruth that is powerfully fragrant. We did not have a 2019 Members' Choice Fragrance Award, simply because we were still working on getting everybody to recognize fragrance, but we have a 2020 American Rose Society Members' Choice Fragrance Award. Well, the 2020 Members' Choice Fragrance Award goes to Olivia Rose Austin. The Members' Choice Award also is powerfully fragrant. And so it has been awarded the Olivia Rose, the Members' Choice Fragrance Award, making it the first rose in history to receive both the Members' Choice Award and the Members' Choice Fragrance Award. Speaking of fragrance, a long-standing award that we have given for the American Rose Society is the James Alexander Gamble Fragrance Medal. Here's a photograph of James Alexander Gamble that I took, iPhone picture of from an American Rose Annual. It is awarded to outstanding new, very fragrant roses. It was established by James Alexander Gamble, who was a past president of the Potomac Rose Society, the Philadelphia Rose Society. I have a book on my shelf behind me by James Alexander Gamble. It was first awarded in 1961. This goes back a long ways to Crimson Glory, hybridized by Willem Cordes. And it's not necessarily awarded every year. It doesn't have to be awarded. So there are skips in the award of the Fragrance Medal. It's selected by the American Rose Society Prizes and Awards Committee for the rose considered the most fragrant in municipal and private gardens throughout the United States over a 5-year period. Here's an example of the one. This is the one that received the 1970 Gamble Fragrance Medal Award, Fragrant Cloud, which I keep statistics of rose shows as the biggest winner of the Fragrance Award in rose shows over the last 20 years. The ironic thing here, many of you who know me well know that I am the only person on the planet that cannot smell fragrant cloud, but it is powerfully fragrant to everybody else, and as I've mentioned, is a great winner and was the 1970 Gamble Fragrance Award. The rose must be registered and must be rated at least 7.5 in the Handbook for Selecting Roses. It's not mandatory that a rose be selected yearly for this medal. Here was the 1986 Gamble Fragrance Medal that I continued to grow and has grown in every garden that I've owned, that I've had, and that is Double Delight. Wonderfully fragrant, also generally has good form, although the form escapes it from time to time, but the fragrance rarely does, and I can smell this one. The new rose is supposed to have been received its registration within 15 years prior to the award, but not less than 5 years. And here we will illustrate the fact that the Prizes and Awards Committee doesn't pay attention from time to time to what the rules say, probably for good reason, but for some reason, Mr. Lincoln probably recognized one of the most fragrant roses ever released, that overlooked for the Gamble Fragrance Medal until it was awarded in 2003. It was introduced in 1964, so it was hardly a new rose at the time, but it was definitely an oversight that needed to be corrected, and it was corrected. So we have a winner this year of the James Alexander Gamble Fragrance Medal. Before I get to it, I guess I've got the one from last year. Here's the 2019 Gamble Fragrance Medal that I awarded at the Franklin Convention in October of last year, going to the exceptionally fragrant hybrid tea Pope John Paul II, hybridized by Keith Zari and introduced by Jackson and Perkins at the time. The 2020 James Alexander Gamble Fragrance Medal goes to Olivia Rose Austin. So not only does it receive the Members' Choice Award and the Members' Choice Fragrance Award, it has received the James Alexander Gamble Fragrance Medal, which gives it a rose hat trick, the first rose in history to receive all 3 of these awards at the same time. This is a photo I took earlier this year that shows how it looks in my garden, which is pretty much how the catalog picture shows. Pat Shanley had a beautiful photograph of it in the June issue of the calendar. If you bought the calendar, you go back and look at that as well. So as I say, if there's one rose you want to pay attention to from this story presentation, there's Olivia Rose Austin. I was pleased to have the opportunity to advise the David Austin family of this award, and I received this message from David Austin Jr., and he said in response to my telling him that they had the hat trick of all three, he said, "Wow, what fantastic news. This is a special moment. My father would have been extremely proud, and my daughter Olivia, who this rose is named after, certainly will be, as we all are here. It certainly gives us all here a nice lift during what would have been a very challenging time." I had invited him to attend at the time the convention in Colorado Springs, which didn't happen, and so that's what the rest of the message is about. We have now the David Firstenberg Prize. I can't find a whole lot about this prize, but it was the interest of an endowment created by the will of Mr. David Firstenberg, a rose lover of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who dictated that the income of the fund shall be awarded from time to time at the discretion of the American Rose Society for the new rose best suited to American conditions. This came about in 1929. Now, this is a time when the American rose industry, we got a lot of our roses at the time would come from abroad. And so the idea here was to recognize a rose hybridized in America that is best suited to American rose conditions. And it is really, when you look at the list of David Firstenberg Prize winners, you will see it as an excellent list of roses produced by American hybridizers. Here, for example, is the 2015 David Firstenberg Prize winner, Sugar Moon, hybridized by Christian Bedard. The Firstenberg Prize can be awarded annually or periodically on the recommendation of the Prizes and Awards Committee to the originator of any new rose of American origin suitable to the American climate, which may deserve honor. Here was the 2017 David Firstenberg Prize winner, Dick Clark. The prize, is actually a cash award of $100. So I got a picture of the prize there of the $100 that we're going to send to the prize winner. And here's a picture of the 2018 winner of the David Firstenberg Prize, Tammy Clemens by David Clemens. The 2021 David Firstenberg Prize goes to the rose Ring of Fire. Orange Blood Hybrid Tea by Chris Greenwood. It won the best rose hybrid tea at Rose Hills in 2014. This is the hottest new rose among exhibitors that there is. We have here a picture of Chris Greenwood accepting an award of merit from Dr. Tommy Cairns at the Rose Hills International Trials. And there is the certificate that we award to Chris Greenwood. And we have Chris Greenwood here today with us to say a few words. Congratulations, Chris.
Thanks, Bob. I was really thrilled when I heard that I was being presented this award. Totally surprised. I would like that $100 prize to be donated back to the garden restoration project. And once again, thank you to the American Rose Society for this award.
Thank you, Chris. I take this opportunity to throw in a little commercial for Horizon Roses 2020. Here is a review of America's newest exhibition, Roses, that is our 38th year. You will see the picture on the cover of Horizon Roses this year is Ring of Fire. That, in fact, is a photograph that Chris Greenwood sent to me of the rose in his garden, and I thought would be a suitable candidate, since Ring of Fire received more reviews this year than any rose in the history of Horizon Roses. It definitely will be placed on the honor roll of Horizon Roses. It is the most well-regarded new hybrid tea in America in Horizon Roses. And if you want to learn more about it, we had 138 contributors this year to Horizon Roses, which was by far a record. And so as it is available at Amazon.com, you can get it in an electronic version at this price. And there's also a paperback version that, you know, if I could have a copy of it here somewhere, but I won't find it. I want to turn now to the American Rose Society Service Awards. Here is Frank Benadello, 1975 American Rose Society Gold Medalist, former president of the American Rose Society. I love this quote from him. This is a quote that he was being interviewed sometime not too long before his passing, and he said, to have beautiful roses, you do have to work at it a little. They need care, they need grooming, they need you. That is also true of rose societies. To have a beautiful rose society, you have to work at it. They need care, they need grooming, they need you. And what we do at our American Rose Society Awards is we recognize those people who have provided that service. Frank Benadello was the first person to suggest that I ought to run and become vice president and the later president of the American Rose Society. His was always about service and always with good spirit. And I spent many an hour with Frank Benadello. A little side story there is Frank was a pipe smoker and I was for years a cigar smoker. So at Rose Society events, we were usually banished to the outdoors where we belonged. And so I had the opportunity to sit there on a bench with Frank Benadello any number of times listening to him, always enjoying his company, but most of all enjoying the tremendous service that he provided to the American Rose Society. We have our first award is a Rising Star Award. The desire to further the ARS mission to promote the culture and appreciation of the rose through education and research, as well as our desire to continue the work of ARS into perpetuity. We've established the annual Rising Star Awards for up to 5 individuals who have contributed to the world of roses in a substantial way. I have some group photographs of past winners. Here are 3 of the winners of the 2017 prizes and awards. The Rising Star Award, Jim Reddington, Jace Hires, and Christian Bedard, being presented by our past president, Pat Shanley, and our then executive director, Laura Seabaugh. The nominees must be submitted by current ARS members. They do not need to be ARS members, but must be 45 years of age or younger at the time the nomination was received. Here are 3 of our 2018 Rising Stars, Sheldon Drobot, Jason Fredette, and Sue Longini, who received the Rising Star Awards at the convention in which I was installed as president. The award is intended to honor and encourage young individuals who are doing outstanding work in promoting the culture and appreciation of the rose. It includes, but is not limited to, the areas of rose education, research, preservation, industry, hybridizing, photography, arranging, culinary arts, art, design, innovation, ARS and local society volunteering. Here is our one of our 2019 Rising Stars, Jason Capote, who I was privileged to present the award to at the Franklin Convention last year. Jason has just been doing remarkable things, and I have since appointed him to edit the Fragrant Rose, one of our newsletters, or electronic newsletters that goes out to all of our e-members, and he's been doing an excellent job at it, and I very much appreciate it. But I was very much pleased that I was able to present him with this award. One of our other Rising Stars in 2019 is our very own Beth Van Boxtel. I say very own because she is instrumental in the San Diego Rose Society, and I nominated her for the award. Winners are normally recognized at the conference banquet, and a story about their work is featured in the American Rose magazine. They receive a 1-year free membership here at our Christmas party for the San Diego Rose Society. Last December, I was privileged to award Beth with the 2019 Rising Star Award. The 2020 Rising Star Award is made to Timothy Mann. Timothy Mann is a stalwart or young stalwart of the Denver Rose Society. Here he is. I know it looks a little funny. I cropped him out of a picture that I found. This is when he volunteered to become the secretary of the Denver Rose Society, and they installed him and gave him a feather pen to be the secretary, which is the purpose of what he's holding there. Later, he served as vice president of programs, brought outstanding programs to the Denver Rose Society, the exactly type of rising star that we're delighted to recommend and recognize. And so we have recognized Timothy Mann as a 2020 Rising Star. As indicated, a further article about him and his contributions will be published in the American Rose magazine in the near future. We have the Glenda Whitaker Annual Award for Achievement and Membership. This award is established in honor of Glenda Whitaker, who is an ARS member and leader whose excellent example and efforts on behalf of the Society and its members has been an inspiration to all who have worked on behalf of the Society in the area of membership, and to recognize those who have made outstanding and unique contributions to the Society in its effort to grow in members. I was pleased and privileged to know Glenda for many years. She was the wife, Bob Whitaker, who past president of the American Rose Society. Glenda always had a big stack of membership forms. She constantly promoted membership in the American Rose Society. She was also a gifted arranger, as you can see from this photograph taken in 2005 of one of her award-winning arrangements. And so the award for membership, the Achievement Award, was named in her honor. Is intended to be given for an outstanding achievement by an individual, team, society, district, or business which has been a helpful partner with the American Rose Society. The nominees must be ARS members, and the award is selected by the ARS Membership Committee. Here's an interesting photograph I found. Here's Glenda, and this is Nancy Jones. Nancy is the 2017 award recipient, and another example of someone who's just lives and breathes membership in the American Rose Society and continues to serve also as chaplain of the American Rose Society, for which I am very pleased to that she continues to do that for us. The 2020 Glenda Whitaker Annual Award for Achievement in Membership is awarded to Jeff Wykoff. Jeff Wykoff, you will recognize, as a former president of the American Rose Society. Jeff has undertaken many activities on behalf of ways to develop membership in the American Rose Society. And we have Jeff here with us, and give Jeff an opportunity to say a few words, having been awarded the Glenda Whitaker Annual Award for Achievement in Membership.
Am I on?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bob. First of all, I'd like to thank the membership committee for considering me for this award. It is indeed an honor to receive this, and it, like Bob, it reminds me of Glenda Whitaker, who I was privileged to know and love, as long as her husband, Robert. The remarks I'm going to make are more or less taken from an article I wrote about 3 years ago for the American Rose magazine called A New Approach to Membership Recruitment. And if you didn't read that or didn't save your magazine, I think it's going to go up on the ARS website soon. And if you want, you can get a hold of me and I can send you a copy. The article was entitled A New Approach to Membership Recruitment, and the thrust of it was that we now have the American Rose Society trial memberships, and then that was expanded to a clause, I guess you would call it, that new members to the local society are entitled to a 2 I guess it would be two magazine, a 4-month trial period with the American Rose Society. And what the Seattle Rose Society did was to try to combine or meld those two into something that would be beneficial for both of us. And so we came up with a few thoughts here that are in that article. One of which was, where do we look for new members for the American Rose Society or for the local Rose Society? And our best thought was, you find people that love roses at rose nurseries early in the spring or in the late winter, depending upon your location. And so we approached a number of nurseries about doing classes for them in pruning, culture, whatnot. And we got their cooperation by telling them that we would promote the roses that they have for sale that year that we know to be tried and true varieties. And we also told them that their culture and care products, we would look over and recommend those we thought to be effective in our area. And so we had very good cooperation from the local nurseries. And so from that point on, we made sure that our classes were staffed with the people, and we'd had copies of the American Rose magazine and our local society bulletin on hand so people could view them. I think so often we look for ARS members without showing them basically what I consider our prime asset, which is the magazine. So during the classes, we would have these passed around. And at that point, at the end of it then, we would give them our pitch for an offer, which was the 2 magazines for free for the trial membership, plus we would discount our local society membership and make it a package, 2 for 1. The trial membership for the local was either a full year at half membership price, or you could consider a half a year for free. And with this, we found that I would say 20 to 25% of the attendees at these sessions would sign up. It was really amazing. And my thought was, and as it proved out, that if we round up the new ARS members in the trial program, then headquarters, John and his staff, are responsible for signing them up as full-time members. And from what I understand, that has also been fairly successful. John may be able to tell us what the percentage of renewals at full point were, but the point here is that the combination of the two seems to work better than, I guess you would say, one or the other. We've all looked at our own society members in terms of joining the ARS, and we've had various amounts of success or not. But for brand new members, the combination of the two seems to work very well. And I would encourage you to consider this and, spin it, maybe adjust it to whatever your needs are. But what it does is continue the membership of both of our organizations, the American Rose Society and your local affiliated society. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I turn to the next award is the Guy Blake Hedrick Award. This award is established in memory of Guy Blake Hedrick Jr. to recognize outstanding rose exhibitors who display the highest levels of excellence, integrity, and respect for the ideals of showing roses typified by Mr. Hedrick during his long career as a rosarian. This award is very close to me because, as most of you know, or many of you know, I'm an exhibitor and was the chairman of the Rose Horticultural Exhibitors Committee for many years. And in fact, I was the chair when this award was first proposed and established. Like Hedrick passed away immediately following a convention at the Portland Rose Society Portland convention a number of years ago. And I was contacted by his friends, and I knew Blake very well. And we thought that there should be an award, Lifetime Achievement Award for exhibitors. And so I actually wrote the qualifications for this award, and as the chair of the committee, brought that to the American Rose Society. Ultimately, it was established, and I was privileged to actually make this award for the first number of years as the chairman of the exhibiting committee. The first awards, the plaque, by the way, was designed by John Mattia, and this is the very first one that was awarded in 2003 to the legendary Slats Walton. We do not have a picture. Actually, he was not able to attend the particular ceremony. We had him on the phone to receive it. In 2004, it was the 2004 recipients, my dear good friend Jeff Stage, who was my mentor in exhibiting, and I had the privilege of presenting this award to him. It is intended as a lifelong achievement award for exhibitors, been a successful national, district, and local exhibitor, and also a model in sharing his or her knowledge and growing championship roses. So not just about winning trophies, it's about sharing that knowledge and being a model exhibitor. But it is also about winning, because activities deemed worthy of consideration include sustained success in showing roses at the national, district, and local levels for a decade or longer by an individual or team who has consistently exhibited rose show entries of the highest caliber with integrity and spirit for the ideals of the American Rose Society. This is our recipient in 2005, Dr. Satish Prabhu, the legendary exhibitor who has won more national trophies than anybody in the history of the American Rose Society. It's interesting that when I put this award together, I goofed up because it should have been originally designed for a team, because Dr. Prabhu's beautiful wife, Vijaya, is very much part of that team. And so subsequently, we went back and added her to the award. And since that time, when we have exhibiting teams, have recognized teams in addition to recognizing individuals. Activities deemed worthy of consideration include sustained lifetime achievement by an individual devoting and focusing his or her educational talents and expertise to promoting the art of exhibition of the rose through consistent and reliable contributions to educating the public about exhibiting roses. Here are two sets of recipients. You see the 2006 recipients were Harold and Jean Baker. In 2007, I received this award. I was not qualified until that time because I had then previously, I was chairman of the committee, and you can't receive the award when you're chairman of the committee. My good friend Eric Yantis had passed away, and Miss Eric was involved. He became the chair of the committee, and they received the award. In fact, when you see me over my shoulder there, as a matter of fact, is the Kedrick Award plaque on the wall. Other recipients include Dr. Tommy Cairns and Louis Desamero in 2008, John and Donna Hefner in 2009, Sandy and Bob Lundberg in 2010. There's a photograph of them. Don and Paula Ballin in 2011, Larry and Doris Meyer in 2012. This is the who's who of exhibitors for the American Rose Society. 2013 with Bob and Doris House, Missouri. 2014, Dale and Elaine Martin, who were not related to me, were the recipients. Here is a photograph of them at the 2014 convention with me, Dale, and Elaine, and Dr. Satish Prabhu and Vijaya photographed. John Mattia received the award in 2015. Those are curious why he didn't receive it earlier, and that's because he was on the committee. He was on the committee for many years, right at the beginning, but finally stepped off the committee, and having done so, we properly recognized him with the award in 2015. My dear friend Andy Plaz received it in 2016. 2017 is awarded to Eddie and Minnie Garcia. This is Don Adlong, who awarded it to them at the South Central District Convention that year. In 2018, I traveled to the Pacific Northwest to attend their convention with the specific objective of presenting the award, 2018 award, to Dennis Cosmo, the legendary exhibitor from Tacoma, Washington. 2019, the nominees for the award have to be members of the ARS. Nominations may be made by any person. The ARS Horticultural Exhibitors Committee selects the Blake Hedrick Award recipient. The chair of that committee is Suzanne Horn. And so if you have nominees, she is the one to contact in order to make nominees. 2019 recipient was Louise Coleman. Louise was the original editor of the publication that became Rose Exhibitors Forum that I edited for years. And so it's kind of full circle to have the opportunity to award her the Guy Blake Hedrick Award. The 2020 Guy Blake Hedrick Award is awarded to Kathy and Bill Kozemczek. Kathy and Bill are extraordinary exhibitors. They're my kind of exhibitors. For those who've been to our garden, you'll recognize that we grow all varieties of roses. We love to compete in every class. And my model for competing in every class is Bill and Kathy Kozemczek, because you go to their garden, they have everything in their garden. It's interesting that, you know, I can think of several examples where we may be the only two in the country who have a particular rose. But they excellent exhibitors. They travel to shows all over and constantly sharing their roses and all types of roses. We're pleased to have Bill and Kathy here today to receive this award. Bill?
First, I'd like to thank you for the presidential citation. The annual was quite a treat to do, really fun. And second, thank you for the nomination. Also like to thank Suzanne Horn and the Exhibitors Committee for their votes for the award. When I first joined the Philadelphia Rose Society, I went to the first Rose Show, and one of the past presidents, Bob Valentine, come up to me and said, "Do you know what you're doing?" I said, "Kind of. I've been an ARS member. I've seen some articles." He said, "Well, let me give you a hand." So he helped me groom the roses and ended up winning the best novice. And when I found that I had won that, I didn't see the rose would end up being king of show too. So the next week we went to West Jersey and took what Bob, had taught me, and we won Queen, Princess, English box, and kind of got me hooked from there. So it was really nice, later on to kind of help other new people. 2002 in West Jersey, one of our friends was, entering roses. They were new, so I helped them. And they come back later, and they had won Queen of Show with a gold medal. So they were thrilled. So I kind of got, a little payback for some of the stuff I've done. And when we started, we grew a lot of hybrid teas and floribundas and a few miniatures. And we had a lot of exhibitors in our area that kind of showed everything. Tom Mayu, Gus Banks, Donna Mary Myers, Kevin Glaze.
The list goes on.
Yeah, the list goes on. Bruce and Liz Monroe, later on, Suni and Rafik Bolar. And I kind of wanted to, compete with them and everything. So we started growing a lot of other type of roses and started winning some of the other classes. And as time goes on, you try to help other people. People come over with questions, and you get thrilled, when they take something up to the head table and, they grab you after the show and, look, here's that rose you helped me with. And that's probably the best part of it. Made a lot of friends over the years. Started doing national conventions, and got friends all over the country now. And I'd like to thank the people who volunteer time for judging, helping run the shows. Without everybody, you can't have a rose show and the other competitors. So the one other thing I want to thank you for was the Rose Exhibitors Forum. Used to love to get that and see our name in there, and see some of the new varieties that did really well. And also for roseshow.com, really appreciate everything you do as far as showing roses. So thank you very much. It's quite an honor.
Thank you, and congratulations again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Turn to the Joseph and Maria Klima Medal. Klima Medal was established in 2000 in honor of the late ARS President Emeritus Joe Klima and his wife Marion. Klima Medal recognizes excellence in the field of rose education. Prizes Award Committee selects the Klima Award recipients, and the Klima Medal is in fact a medal. There is a picture of the Klima Medal, and if I had thought about it, I would have put mine on today so you can see the Klima Medal. It is a beautiful gold medal for excellence in rose education. Kind of become a fraternity and sorority, or a brother and sisterhood of recipients of the medal. It's been at various conventions, somewhat when the medal is awarded, to gather other medal winners together and take group photographs. So I have a number of group photographs of Joseph and Marion Klima Medal winners. Here are Klima Medal winner recipients: Dr. Gary Barlow, Dr. Louis Shoup, Dr. Tommy Cairns, Dr. Andrew Plaz, and Bob Martin. And I use this slide in my program about things about roses I didn't learn in kindergarten. I always refer to myself as a former kindergarten surgeon here. I do say I do have a doctorate degree too. It's a JD degree, and so it's not considered ethical for lawyers to call themselves doctors, which probably confuse everybody since lawyers are always suing doctors, but whatever. Here we have the Klima Medal winners, and you can see the quality of the individuals who received the Klima Medal. Acts worthy of recognition include sustained volunteer performance by an individual over a decade or more, providing measurable, high-quality educational instruction and/or publication in the area of rose education. Here I am pictured with my good friend Andy Plaz. We were the joint winners of the 2019 Klima Medal. An odd thing happened in 2018 in that we tied for the award, and so they decided not to release the award to either of us. In fact, I still recall getting a letter saying, congratulations, you did not get the Klima Medal. It's probably one of the goofiest letters I'd ever received. And I recall I called up Steve Jones, who was then president. I said, well, what happened here? He says, well, there was a tie. I said, who did I tie with? He said, Andy Plaz. I said, well, give the medal to Andy Plaz, for crying out loud, and put me in for consideration another year. Oddly enough, later I talked to Andy Plaz, and he had exactly the same conversation. He said exactly the same thing. He says, get the medal to Bob, and consider me a next year. But anyway, what they did the following year is we tied again, so they gave us both the medal to clear that tie out of the way and go forward. And here are the two of us having received in 2000, I should say 2009 rather than 2019. Here's a picture of other Klima Medal recipients. Here's Dr. Gary Barlow, Dr. Andy Plaz. Here I am hiding in the back. Here's Baldo Villegas and Dr. Louis Shoup, Dr. John Dickman, who for years wrote the answer column in the American Rose magazine, and great contributions. Here's a more recent picture. Here's one with Dr. Tommy Cairns, Baldo Villegas, Jolene Adams, Louis Desamero, and myself, recipients of the Marion Klima Medal Award. This year's recipients, here's a photograph of the Rose Bronze Medal, which I hybridized that he sent to me. So I give you a photo of a rose that our recipient this year grew. Our recipient this year is a scientist, and he has written interesting articles, and I looked over the nomination, and I see that he wrote Rates of Reaction of Singlet Oxygen with Olefins in the 82 Journal of Physical Chemistry in 1978, and the never forgotten or probably never remembered article on shake-up satellites and tetrafluorotetracyanoquinolidine. My guess is the pronunciation of that. I guess there's ethane at the end, and it's salts. But he not only writes about scientific matters, but he writes about roses. wrote an article called "The Rose is a Rose" in the Delaware Law Weekly in June of 1999. Another article in Patents, Trademarks, and Roses in the 2002 American Rose Annual. He was also the principal author of the Guidelines for Judging Roses, the chapter on challenge classes and collections. I recall serving on the Judges Committee at the time and must have generated 1,000 emails with discussion back and forth about revising that chapter. And at the end, he was the one assigned to write the chapter, assisted by myself and Jolene Adams. And the language of that chapter has a great deal to do with our recipient. He is also the principal author of the recent specifications on the combined national challenge classes. He revised and updated the guidelines for judging roses and converted it to a standard 8.5 by 11 format. He revised the apprentice horticultural judge exam and related study materials. And without further ado, the recipient of the Joseph and Marion Klima Medal for 2020 is Bruce Monroe. Bruce is here with us today to say a few words.
I want to thank the Prizes Awards Committee for considering me for this award. I do want to say that my principal problem in exhibiting is I have to compete with Bill Kozemczek and Kathy Kozemczek. It seems like every show I go to, they're there too. I do have a lot of remarks to make. However, they're on the Klima Lecture, which follows, has been pre-recorded and it runs for 48 minutes. And so I will not say any more remarks now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce, and congratulations. I turn now to the highest honor of the American Rose Society, and that is the American Rose Society Gold Honor Medal. It is the highest honor awarded by the American Rose Society. It was first awarded in 1933 to J. Horace McFarland, the father of the American Rose Society. It is the who's who of the American Rose Society. It is the ultimate in service of the American Rose Society. And a great example of the Gold Honor medalist is Dr. Tommy Cairns, who was the 2008 gold medalist, pictured here, and probably has received more awards than any Rosarian in the history of the American Rose Society since J. Horace McFarland. The nominee must have diligently worked on the national level in any capacity for the betterment of the American Rose Society and its membership. Here is a 2013 gold medalist, Louis Desamero, my friend, and for many, many years, so many contributions in writing about miniature roses and editing newsletters. Louis is the one who got me started writing about roses. I went to my very first rose show many, many years ago, 1986, I think it was. And I was about to walk into my first rose show. I mean, I just joined a Rose Society, and he came up to me and he said, would you like to clerk? And I said, I don't even know what a clerk does. He said, don't worry about it. You don't have to do, just follow along and do what they tell you to do. And then he came to me afterwards and said, would you write me an article? And I did. I wrote the first article. Someday I could share with you my article. I don't really believe hardly any of the things I said in that article, but I wrote an article, and it was Louis Desamero got me started. Louis Desamero's service to the American Rose Society is legendary, and he was our 2013 recipient. The nominee must be a current member of the American Rose Society, have at least 12 years of service. Here are two of them. This is Marilyn Wellen, who is our 2017 gold medalist, and Louise Coleman, who is our 2003 gold medalist. The award being presented by our former executive director, Laura Seaball, and our immediate past president, Pat Shanley. The nominee must have done work of merit above and beyond the normal call of duty and devotion. We're not talking here about just, volunteer work. We're talking about super work. And here is an example of super work, the 2018 gold medalist, Jolene Adams, former president of the American Rose Society, who continues to serve. Serves, in fact, today as the consulting Rosarian director of the Northern California, Nevada, Hawaii district. She's always served, she's written, she's just done everything possible for roses, and was our 2018 gold medalist. 2019 gold medalist was Rich Bear. The way this goes about, each member of the Prizes and Awards Committee may nominate a candidate and submit a biographical sketch. So it's not just about being a past president, it's about other contributions. And Rich Bear is the photographer for the American Rose Society. He has, I forget, 50 covers of the American Rose magazine. He is recognized as our premier photographer, and I was very pleased and privileged to present the gold medal to him last year at the Franklin Convention. Our recipient this year, and here's a picture of the gold medal, which is in fact a gold medal, has been an American Rose Society member since 1975. He is a Master Rosarian, a horticultural judge, president of the local Rose Society several times, recipient of the local Rose Society Bronze Honor Medal. He served on the district level as the district chairman of judges, been awarded the district outstanding judge, has received the award as the district outstanding consulting Rosarian, has received the district silver honor medal from 2 different districts.
That moving.
We have here an example of the type of people who get district honor medals. This is a photograph that was taken at the 2017 convention that was held in Monrovia, and we asked all the silver honor medal recipients in attendance to gather for a picture. Here's a group picture, and you look through this picture, I can tell you the recipient of our this year's gold honor medal is in that picture. We'll get back to it, I suppose, but you can see so many people that you will recognize, people who've been involved in the American Rose Society for years, who've received the district silver honor medal. Back to the gold honor medal recipient, he is the chairman of the ARS Plan Giving Committee, or has served as such. He has served as chairman of the ARS Classification Committee. He has served as chairman of the ARS National Horticultural Judges Committee. He serves as trustee, chairman of the ARS Research Trust, and served as the American Rose Society Regional Director.
2 regions without moving.
And the recipient of the gold honor medal, Bruce Monroe, who we just heard from, and we can hear from again. Hello, Bruce, congratulations.
Thank you. I really just don't know what to say. Winning 2 awards, I just blown away by this honor. I do want to acknowledge somebody who I couldn't have done without, who has placed hundreds of my entries, has attended numerous conventions at district level and other district meetings in at least 6 different districts, and is sitting right here. Love in herself. Wave, Liz. My wife, Liz. And I want to thank the committee, and that's about all I can say.
Well, thank you, Bruce, and congratulations. This concludes our awards presentation, and we will segue almost immediately. The Klima Lecture actually brings with it not only a very nice medal and a small cash award, but it also brings with it the obligation to present a lecture, the Klima Lecture. So Bruce Monroe is the recipient, and therefore we will move from there to the Klima Lecture, and we invite everyone to stay around and hear the Klima Lecture.
Sometime in the middle of this lecture, you will hear a barking dog, and that's not my dog. I think that was John's dog when we recorded. To the Klima Lecture. Here's my first slide. As you can see, the program is not being given at Colorado Springs on June 19, 2020. Unfortunately, we were unable to hold that meeting, and practically every Rose activity for the year has been canceled. On the top of the bookcase behind me is a collection of gardens, juice cans, Slurpee cups, and other containers used for transporting roses to rose shows that didn't get any use this year. But because of the virus, many communities and families have lost valued members, and the rose judging community is no different. We lost David J. Rink in April. He was the New York District Horticultural Judging Chair, and I had the pleasure of working with him on starting with the Syracuse Mini National in 2011 on several national shows, district shows, and local shows, and we'll certainly miss him. Here he is judging Penn Jersey District Show in Lancaster in 2012. There were no low tables available, and all the district challenge classes had to be staged on high tables, or not high tables, on standard height tables. And the judges had to stand on chairs to see the roses. And I use this slide to point out to people that you can't move a challenge class. You've got to be able to judge it somehow without moving it. All right. It was suggested that because I received this award for education in rose judging, I say something about rose judging. So thought I'd try and see what the history of rose judging was, and I figured that probably I should look for the beginning of competitive rose shows, because obviously if there was a competition, there must have been some judges and some judging. And there are online several newspaper databases that go back into the 1700s, and they have been scanned and they're full searchable full word. And so I was able to search back and find various articles and about rose shows, or rose exhibitions as they were generally known as. But here we see in 1834, the Aberdeen Horticultural Society is having an exhibition, and they have classes, two classes for roses, one for 12 double roses and one for seedling doubles. But it's more of it's a general show. There's one for 3 heads of cauliflower, and there's strawberries. Now this is in July. That would be a little late for strawberries in our area, but maybe in Scotland that's about right. Also irises, but it also said that this is their 4th competition, which would indicate that they started having competitions about 1831. Here's another one. In 1837, you can see there were classes for roses and also geraniums and pinks and various other flowers. The United States was no different. Here, 1838, the Massachusetts Horticultural Society was having an exhibit on the 23rd of June, 1838, which would be about right for New England. And once again, they were showing roses and pinks, and you needed to have your entries in by 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, just to give you an idea, in 1838, Martin Van Buren was president of the United States, and Samuel Findlay Breeze Morse had just demonstrated the telegraph, so that gives you an idea of what the technology was at that time. Note that gentlemen having roses who are not desirous to enter them for prizes are respectively invited to contribute specimens for exhibition. So there was an exhibition as well as a competition. There's no indication of what ladies who had roses who wished to enter them should do, but that's probably not unexpected. All right, that brings us to this gentleman, Samuel Reynolds Hole. He was elevated, he was a clergyman, Reverend Samuel Hole, and he was elevated to the Dean of Rochester Cathedral in 1887. So you'll frequently see him referred to as Dean Hole. Well, just remember that Dean is his title, not his name. His name was Samuel Reynolds. He was about 1850. He was invited to judge a rose show in April, and he knew perfectly well that roses did not bloom in the UK in April, and he thought it was sort of a joke. But the person who had invited him very politely responded and said that these were indoor grown roses, and if he would come, they would tell him all about it. So he went, and it was as if he'd taken the road to Damascus. He suddenly became a devotee of the rose. He was converted to promoting the rose. He said later in life that he had seen a lot of rose shows since then, but he'd never seen one that was better than this working man rose show that he saw in Nottingham in 1850. Interestingly, that when he was invited to judge this show, he said he had a large garden but no roses and didn't know anything about them. And apparently, merely being a clergyman was considered sufficient qualifications to judge a flower show. All right. By 1859, there was a show in London that was strictly for roses. And as the newspaper notes here, that was somewhat of a novelty. Ordinarily, you have all kinds of blooms, but here, this is the idea of holding a show of just roses was due to the Reverend S. Reynolds Hole, who suggested it, and whose proposition has been well and warmly responded by both the amateur and professional florists of the kingdom. So here we have the first big rose show in London in 1859. By 1876, the National Rose Society was organized. Here we go. And they held their first show July 5th, 1877. It was yesterday afternoon in St. James Hall. The National Rose Society held the first of its proposed series of annual shows. Notice about 10,000 entries, not bad, and about 200 pounds in awards were given away in prizes. The success of the show was highly satisfactory, the hall being crowded with visitors throughout the day. Well, the Royal National Rose Society was organized in December 9th, 1876. It was the National Rose Society to begin with, became the Royal National Rose Society in 1965. It was the first plant society. I mean, formerly we had horticultural societies, which were concerned not only with roses, but with other flowers and possibly with fruits and vegetables as well. But this was the first society in the world that was dedicated to a single type of flower. So it's considered to be the first plant society. Unfortunately, it had a problem, financial problems, decrease in membership, and was dissolved in 2017. But one of the first things the National Rose Society did, in addition to having that show, was to ask leading rosarians how they judged roses, what was considered important. And this is what they came up with. Now, it's important to understand that it was not Dean Hole or someone else at the National Rose Society or a committee of the National Rose Society sat down and said, well, how do you think we ought to judge roses? What do you think is important? What they did is they asked the people who were growing roses, showing roses, judging roses, how they judged it, what they considered important. So they looked to see what people were doing and wrote it down. An attorney would refer to this as codification of the common law. Find out what people are doing and write it down. So here we have what the Royal National Society, with the National Rose Society came up with, what people told them in 1878. Note, a good rose must have form, size, brightness, substance, foliage, and be at the time of judging in the most perfect phase of possible beauty. Now that sounds almost like the current guidelines for judging roses. It hasn't changed that much. Brightness, if you look at the bottom line there, you'll see brightness shall imply freshness of color, brilliancy, and purity. It's exactly what we call as color. So here are 5 of the 6 prime elements of judging had already been spelled out by the people who were working and judging roses by 1878. A bad rose. All blooms shall be considered bad that have faulty shape, confused center, faded color, either undersized or oversized. Form. Petals abundant and of good substance, regularly and gracefully dispersed within a circular symmetrical outline. Now we would add intending to a high center to that, but that's pretty much what we say about his exhibition form. So this is really the seminal document for rose judging. Everything since then has been some elaboration of these particular standards that had been developed and that the National Rose Society put in writing in 1878. Note, for example, that there's no indication what's the relative importance of form, size, brightness, substance, and foliage. Which is more? Is form more important than foliage? Is size better than substance? So they look at these 5 characteristics, but there's no indication how they should be weighted. Well, the British, as you remember, are judging roses in boxes, and each box received a score. And outstanding bloom got 3 points, a good bloom 2 points, a so-so bloom 1 point, and a bad bloom a -1 point. So each box got a number. And if boxes were tied, here's what they were supposed to do. Judges shall proceed to consider the general evenness, variety, arrangement, and setting up. Boxes being placed side by side and in the same light for that purpose. So if things are close, we're going to look at overall appearance. That sound familiar? Sure does. They also had some notes about judges. Judges shall, as far as possible, be 3 in number for small shows and for all sections of large shows, selected principally from successful exhibitors. They shall have no manner of interest in the sections which they are judging. They must be non-partial. And I thought that was interesting. They put this in. They shall begin punctually at the hour appointed. They needed to tell the judges to show up on time and get to work. But these are the same, pretty much the same standards we use even today for selecting roses. Well, apparently, after the National Rose Society put out these standards, they were published and circulated. And here we see a notice that was printed in the paper for a show in Savannah, Georgia in 1889. Hang on, sorry, next slide. There we see the notice for a show in Savannah, Georgia in 1889 by the Savannah Floral Art Exhibition show. And here are exactly what the National Rose Society had put forth, except for the fact that they've Americanized the spelling of color and center, but it's the same thing that they, so apparently these were widely distributed and adopted by other groups that were having shows. Well, that was 3 years before the American Rose Society was founded. The American Rose Society was founded in 1892. And as I'm sure most of you know, it was really originally an organization of florists and commercial rose growers, more than the amateur, quote, where they can all considered to be the amateur rose grower. But they had their first show in 1900. And the date was March 27th through 29th, 1900 in New York City. Now, I haven't checked this with the Manhattan Rose Society, but I suspect that in mid-March, there aren't any roses blooming outside in New York City. There certainly aren't in Delaware, and New York City shouldn't be that much different from Delaware. So this was for greenhouse-grown roses. Interesting thing about this show is there's a list of the prominent ladies who have signified their approval by becoming patronesses. Now, I haven't gone through that list, but I did pick out a few. Mrs. F.W. Vanderbilt, Mrs. Theodore Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was governor of New York at the time. Mrs. Astor, Mrs. J.P. Morgan, Mrs. James Roosevelt. Mrs. James Roosevelt was the mother of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So they apparently had a lot of sponsorship. So 1907, they had this show in Washington, D.C., once again in March, and they were invited to the White House. Teddy Roosevelt was president at the time, and he invited the American Rose Society to the White House. I don't know that we could get an invitation to the White House today, but they certainly did in 1907. And here's a report of the meeting. There's 2 questions were then brought forth for discussion. What definitive work can the American Rose Society take up at this time for its members, in particular for the rose-loving public in general, that does not now do? So what should the ARS be doing? Second, granted that a large increased membership is desirable and essential to the permanence and usefulness of the American Rose Society, how may it best be accomplished? Where should we find ready response among the professional florists and gardeners, or what is commonly called amateurs? So 2 questions: what should we do? How do we increase the membership? I would imagine that the people who attended this meeting would not have felt out of place at Thursday's board meeting, because these two questions are still questions that the ARS board is struggling with. (1908) notices began to appear that had a scale of point judging. There was an article that was put together by the florist industry that was widely distributed throughout the country, apparently, because I found it republished in a paper in Ohio and one in Montana. But it said, as a regular scale of points for judging roses has been adopted by the American Rose Society. We'll take a look at this in a moment in more detail. But there it is. At one time, the American Rose Society published a member's handbook. Now, this is not to be confused with the annuals, to which I'm sure most of you are familiar, but there was a separate publication called the Member's Handbook. And I found on the internet a scan PDF that had the 1920 to 1926 Member's Handbook. I was able to purchase the 1949 and 1944 Member's Handbook. Now, this had financial statements, minutes of board meetings, minutes of committee meetings, and also a rather extensive section on the standards that the ARS had developed for judging. In addition, it had a complete list of members along with their addresses. So you can go back and look and see who the members of the ARS were in your community in 1920. So, all right, here's the cover of the 1920 Members Handbook. And here they had the regulations and scale of points for judging blooms. And they had points for groups of rose plants, individual rose plants, single specimens of rose plants. But down here, competitive classes, size 15%, color 20%, stem 20, form 15, substance 15, foliage 15. Novelties, and also a section for novelties, which I think we would call seedlings. So here's the standards. Notice, form is only 15 points. Color is 20. Stem and foliage are two separate elements. Stem's 20, foliage 15, for a total of 35. So stem and foliage are 35% and form's only 15%. And when they were talking stem, as will be apparent, what they were talking about is length of stem. The longer, the better. So you try to get the longest possible stem, because that's how you got the most points. Now, here was the schedule for novelties. Notice that stem's now only 15 points, and there's 10 points for distinctiveness, which we would call, in our seedling score now, we refer to that as originality. There's also 5 points for fragrance, which is sort of interesting. The only place we consider fragrance now is in the fragrance class. Okay, here was another thing. All roses shall be disqualified for exhibited with more than 2 growths, 1 pinch, except for classes calling for displays and for 100 or more blooms in 1 vase, on which 2 pinches are allowed. I'm not quite sure what that means. I think what they're saying is that 1 stem on stem is permissible, but more than 1 is not, unless it's in a display or in something for more than 100 blooms. But, all right, here's the Potomac Rose Society in 1938. Here was what was published in the paper. Cut the flower with long stems. The length of stem counts 20% of the final score, and every point helps to win. But then, it is not considered proper to cut beyond the current growth. That is, beyond the point of the emergence of the flowering shoot. This seems to indicate that stem on stem is not considered proper, but it doesn't say it's a disqualification. So I'm not quite sure what they meant by it's not considered proper. Note, here's the standards over here. Now, about 1938, 1940, a new scale of points for judging appeared, and we'll. So you'll see now form has become 25%.
color 25, substance 20. Stem and foliage have been combined, and they've cut back from 35% to 20%, and size is now 10%. This is very similar to the current one, and we'll talk about the modification shortly about. Okay, 1950, ARS decided to hold a judging school. They held their first judging school in Washington, D.C., September 30th through October 1st through 3rd for the annual meeting. That's dates are right for Washington. And there was a report published later in the Washington Evening Star about the judging school. And as you can imagine, it was a list of prominent Rosarians who talked about the prime elements of judging, just like the judging school today. So the committee on qualification of judges decided that we needed a manual. It was nice we had these schools, but not everybody could go to schools. And anyway, the judges needed some kind of reference that they could carry around with them. So they decided to publish a manual. And C.H. Lewis, who was chairman of the Committee on Training of Judges, put together a judging manual, which he published. And I want to thank Clarence Rhodes, who gave me his copy. So I have this manual. It has all the information about the primary elements of judging. Has an extensive selection listing apparently all the roses that were commercially available in their color classes. And I would assume that the problem at the time was that we didn't have something like the little publication now that has all the color classes, the handbook for selecting roses, so that it was here. And also had an extensive section on distinguishing characteristic varieties. And here you see all the various leaf forms. Well, here's C.H. Lewis's picture. C.H. Lewis was from Salem, Virginia. He had been president of the Roanoke Rose Society, and he served as colonial district director for 2 terms. Shouldn't be confused with C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. He says C.H. Lewis. The manual also had an application for a rose judging certificate. Sorry, apprentice rose judging certificate. And down at the bottom, it says, what judging schools have you attended? And tell us about the rose shows you've judged. So it was apparent that the ARS was trying to get the people who were judging rose shows to apply to be apprentice judges and become accredited ARS judges at the time. Okay, here is a statement in this book that has led to problems, innumerable problems, still has caused problems. Is the overall length of the stem should be in proportion to the size of the bloom and must be of sufficient length to show or exhibit 5 or 7 leaflet leaves. The specimen should be severely penalized when exhibited with only 3 leaflet leaves. It's apparent from the context that the requirement for 2, 5, or 7 leaflet leaves was to make sure that you had a stem sufficiently long to balance the bloom in proportion to the bloom. When I first heard all that, I remember going to judging school and hearing this drilled into everyone about you had to have 2 5-leaflet leaves. So why? Nobody seemed to know why, but you did. I mean, how can 2 5-leaflet leaves affect the beauty of the bloom at the top of the stem? And who has time to count all the leaflets and all the leaves of the specimens you're judging anyway? Well, this was done to make sure that the stem was sufficiently long. All right. Well, there was a problem. C.H. Lewis had the copyright for the book, and he would not permit any changes to be made, any updates to be made. So what the ARS had to do is whenever they changed something or made an update, they published addendum, and they mailed this addendum to all the members. And so the judges would walk around with the book and all these addendum, and they more and more addenda. And then when there was a question, they had to go through the book and then go through and make sure who had the most recent addenda to figure out what the answer was. So ARS decided it was time that they had their own judging manual. Don Ballin was was chairman of the Committee on Training and Accrediting Judges, put together the judging manual. Don Ballin was later president from 1986 to 1989. But here's Don in his garden in the Chicago area. That was the picture that appeared on the ARS cover when he was president. So they put out the first ARS judging manual, Guidelines for Judging Roses. And here's what they did. They added one prime element of judging. They added balance and proportion, 10 points. They reduced color by 5 points. They reduced substance by 5 points to get 10 points for balance and proportion. So now we have stem and foliage, 20 points, balance and proportion, 10 points. Stem length is gone. That went out in 1939. These dates are approximate. Well, 1971 isn't, but the other dates are approximate. I've inferred from where I found publications mentioning these scales of judging. I imagine if they still exist in the archives of the American Rose Society, there are probably board meeting minutes that they tell about these, but the dates are all that important. John Corcoran tells me there's a lot of old stuff down there in Shreveport, so maybe if somebody wants to dig through it sometime, they can figure out exactly when these things happen. So now, when they put in balance and proportion, they removed the 5 leaf requirement. If you go through the original judging manual, there is the only mention of 5 leaflet leaves appears in the section on miniatures, where it says it doesn't matter unless all things are equal, which of course they never are. But in the section on hybrids, where you would expect to find the 5 leaflet leaf requirement, there's not a word about it. So the 5 leaflet leaf requirement went out in 1971. If you're still using that requirement, forget it. You're close to 50 years out of date. Unfortunately, there were review materials that went out to judging schools that had review questions. And these questions had been written by somebody who had a 5 leaflet leaf fetish, because every third or fourth question seemed to be about 5 leaflet leaves. And they continued to be used for considerable time. So instructors would still talk about the 5 leaflet leaf, even though nobody knew why that was important. When I discovered all this, I was New Jersey chairman of horticultural judges, and I told Jeff Wykoff, who was the national chairman of judges, you know, somebody ought to get rid of all these out-of-date stuff and replace it and update it. And he said, good idea, why don't you do it? So we do have updated review questions. If you have any old review questions that talk about 5 leaf, at least burn them or put them through the paper shredder. They're out of date. All right. I began to exhibit, and I joined the ARS in 19, this is, by the way, it's where I came in. We bought a house in 1973, and I put my first roses in 1974. There was a article in there was an offer by Star Roses. If you ordered roses from them, you could join the ARS. So we did. So I joined the ARS in July 1974. I began to see about rose shows. And so we started going. And I said, you know, I can do this. And so my first attempt was at a garden club show, actually, the State Garden Club show in the fall. And so I took my roses down early in the morning. I had wonderful hybrid teas. I think I had Pink Peace and Tropicana and maybe some others. And I also had a Starina. So I entered my roses and I asked, where's the small vases? And they said, no, we don't have any. So I put my Starina sitting in the top of a large vase up where the judges could see it. And as I was leaving, a woman came in with a bucket of the most beautiful roses I had ever seen. And I thought, I need to go back and get all my roses off the table and put them in the trash. And if I can't do that, maybe I should just pull off the entry tags so nobody will know who put them in. Well, I didn't. And I ended up getting several honorable mentions. And lo and behold, a blue ribbon on my starina. And I was hooked. The woman who had the beautiful roses, Ann Barczewski, she became a good friend and a mentor. Here she is judging at the Delchester Rose Show. And she received the silver medal from the Colonial District in 1981. That was at the National Show in Washington in 1981. We took her down for the banquet. Then I attended my first ARS show was the Delchester Rose Show, which turned out I discovered was in a mall very close to me, just across the line in Pennsylvania. And I signed up to join, and the man at the information desk who signed me up was Lincoln Adkis. Now, I knew who Lincoln Adkis was. He wrote the beginner's column for the American Rose Society magazine, so I'd read a number of his columns. At the time, he was either national or district chairman of horticultural judging. Here's his picture. He's in the middle there with Lee Boyer, Frank Engel, Lincoln Adkis, Lou Gross. This is Nelson Jolly on the far right. And here he is looking for roses on the right. He's judging with Ben Williams. That's probably the Delchester show again. Well, Lincoln had worked with Don Ballin on the original ARS judging manual. He, in fact, wrote the introduction to the judging manual, which we've reproduced in the current edition. And he was responsible for the first update, first revision of the guidelines for judging roses, which occurred in 1979. Now, one of the things that he did was to drop the restriction on professionals. The original judging manual had this big long paragraph of a definition of professionals and said professionals couldn't participate. And this probably harkened back to the time when the ARS also had a number of florists and growers who were participating. They had long since lost interest. So this was really a useless section. He dropped it. But what he told me was he got a phone call when he was national chairman of judges from someone, said, "We got a real problem." He said, "Well, that's what we're here for. What's your problem?" Well, we have this woman who's very active in our Rose Society, an active exhibitor, and she took a job working for a florist. Now, who knows what her job working for the florist was, whether she ran the cash register or delivered flower arrangements to funeral homes, whatever. But anyway, we determined she was a professional and couldn't exhibit. Well, she doesn't work for the florist anymore, so the real question we're having, and it's a real problem, is how many years does she have to wait before she can start judging again? He said, I told him, if that's the biggest problem you've got where you live, I think I got to move there. So he decided that was a useless provision and it's taken out. Interestingly, when I was national chairman of judges, I got a proposed schedule from a local society that was hosting a national show, and that still had the provision in it. And I said, look, that went out in 1979. Please remove it. Okay, I began to do some exhibiting, and I learned how to pick for show. You take a good look at your roses and decide what looks good, and you cut that and take it to show. Here I am checking out some of my roses before I go to show, and began showing at the Philadelphia Rose Society Rose Show, which was at the time at Plymouth Meeting Mall. And unfortunately, the mall decided they could make more money. They put a bunch of kiosks in that area instead of rose shows and other flower shows and auto shows and other things like that. So the Philadelphia Rose Society now has their show at Morris Arboretum. But then I went to a district show. Now, this was still the age of the hybrid tea grower, if you want to call it that. to be considered a serious rose grower, you had to grow 200 hybrid teas of all the latest exhibition type, nothing else. You had to spray them at least once a week and more often when it rained, and exhibit nothing but hybrid teas. So I got the schedule for the district show, and there was a hybrid tea court of honor, had a king, queen, princess, and then there were awards for best white, best yellow, best apricot, best pink blend, best red blend, best mauve, oh, so on and so forth, probably best polka dot someplace down in there. And down at the bottom of the schedule, here were old garden roses, climbers, and shrubs, all classed together under the title Miscellaneous Roses. Well, I won the Miscellaneous Rose Trophy with the rose Marquise Boccello, as you can see from the tag that was on the head table. I didn't, as we tell people in judging school, spelling doesn't count, so I didn't try to correct them. They had my name spelled correctly, and that was probably all that mattered. Anyway, I just won something, so I wasn't going to complain. So I decided about this time that maybe I should find out exactly what judges were looking for. Colonial District was having a judging school in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia in June 1979. So I signed up. I figured, well, it was a Friday night and Saturday with the exam on Sunday, and I figured, well, we'll go down, and I'll go to the session on Friday night and Saturday, and Sunday we'll do some sightseeing at Harpers Ferry and come home. So I went down, attended the judging school. Saturday afternoon, Helen Arnold and Alec Martin pointed me and said, why aren't you taking the exam? And I said, well, you know, I just barely meet the qualifications for membership and shows, and Blue Ribbons won. And anyway, I haven't filled out the application. You have to fill that out well in advance and send it in, pay the fee. And they said, no problem. Here's the application form. Fill it out. We'll send it in with the exams. So I filled out the application form, paid my fee, took the exam, and passed. So I began my apprentice judging. I had my first apprentice judging that fall at the Penn Jersey District Show in Reading. And the following spring, I judged a show, and I won't tell you where or with whom, but I use this as an example when I talk about judging ethics. I was judging with a prominent judge, and he said to me, isn't that rose a little tight for Blue Ribbon? And I didn't argue with him. I said, yeah, I think so. So he picked up the vase and blew in the rose. He didn't touch the bloom. He just blew in the rose and put it back down. I said, now I think we can give it a Blue Ribbon. And I asked people in judging school, what should I do? The normal question is reporting to the district chairman of judges, which would have been very easy. He was the district chairman of judges. So not being stupid, and he was the guy who was going to fill out my evaluation, I punched Blue Ribbon on the tag and we went on. If I hadn't done that, I might not be here today. Anyway, I continued to exhibit. Here I am exhibiting. The W on the red hat stands for Wabash College, not Wisconsin. On the right there, I've got Irresistible, the best miniature at the Philadelphia Rose Show and some other shows. I also discovered you can win a large bowl, temporary possession of a large bowl. And so I occasionally won a large bowl. I made the mistake of sitting them on the floor, and my dear sweet kitty ran over, jumped in, curled up, and went to sleep. So the bowl on the left was won by someone else the following year. And this exhibitor happened to be hosting the Society's annual picnic. And when we got to the annual picnic, we discovered he was serving punch out of that bowl. We didn't say anything. We assumed he washed it out before he put the punch in, but we avoided the punch. Well, I also continued some judging. Here I am on the left, judging with Craig Dorschel at the Connecticut Rose Society Rose Show. John Mattia took that picture. Don't remember quite where that was, but there I'm teaching at a judging school. And I became chairman of horticultural judging for the Penn Jersey district. Jeff Wykoff was national chairman at the time. And Wykoff was preparing a new revision of the guidelines. And he needed somebody to revise the section on challenge classes and collections. I volunteered. So I revised the section on, and so when the new edition of the guidelines came out, by now they had moved to the loose leaf binder, the familiar red binder, which I'm sure most of you remember. And I got listed as an editor. So here, Louise Coleman and Ed Griffith had revised Atkins's guidelines. Susan Klingham-Peel had written the chapter on many floras, which of course did not exist at the time the previous edition was published. And I wrote the chapter on, revised the chapter on judging challenge classes collections. So I got listed as an editor. Now, I wanted to emphasize that there are really no, except for the ARS certificates, there are really no standard ARS rules for challenge classes collections. Everyone could be different. And it's what the show schedule says. So I started out, I said, challenge classes and collections are creatures of the show schedule. You won't believe the comments I got about that sentence, but I thought it was something that got people's attention. And so I left it in. All right. So, Wykoff became president, and I must have impressed him with my revision of the chapter of challenge classes collections because he named me national chairman of horticultural judging. It was apparent that a new revision of the guidelines was needed, and the word we got from Shreveport is, we're not going to publish it in this small format anymore. It is extremely expensive to publish in this small format. We have to have it printed, then we have to have it cut, then we have to have it drilled so that they will fit in the binders. And we just can't afford to do that anymore. And anyway, the technology had changed. You didn't have to mail it out to everybody. You could put it on the internet, on the ARS website, and people could download it themselves and print it and put it in there in the binder. So I revised the guidelines. So we had another revision, 2012. We changed the formatting to 8.5 by 11. We paginated each chapter individually. One of the problems with the previous guidelines was that the pages were numbered sequentially through the entire volume. So if the pagination of one chapter changed, it changed the pagination of the whole book. So here, each chapter was paginated individually so you could replace one chapter and not affect the pagination of the rest of the book. And that obviously made it less expensive to update, and you could download and print copies from the ARS website. Also, formerly there was one chapter that covered shrubs and old garden roses. And these were divided into two chapters. And when that was done, it became apparent that the judging of shrubs is very similar to the judging of climbers, not the old garden roses. And that's not surprising. Shrubs and climbers are both classifications, both based on growth habit, not flower form. And blooms with one, or specimens with one bloom, with or without side buds, compete with sprays for awards in both the shrub and climber classes. Formerly, shrubs could be shown stem on stem and climbers couldn't, but that has been changed. So there's essentially no difference between the judging of shrubs and the judging of climbers. you can almost say that climbers are merely shrubs with extra long canes. But anyway, old garden roses also became a separate chapter. Now, where are we now? Well, it's apparent that a new revision of the guidelines will be needed by 2021. In Nashville, the board made major changes to the rules of disqualification and penalization. A revised chapter on disqualification and penalization was considered by the board at the meeting on Thursday. Changes for the shrub classification had been proposed, were also considered by the board at the meeting on Thursday. Prizes and Awards Committee is reviewing the National Challenge classes and may have changes to them too. I hope to have this all done by the fall meeting in Milwaukee in 2021. That's when my term ends. I don't want to leave a lot of loose ends lying around for my successor to take care of. So we hope to have a new edition of the guidelines for the fall of 2021. All right. This slide is a slide I put together for a talk I gave to garden club judges several years ago. And as you can see, it's for showing faults, form faults in judging. There's creases in the center of the double delight, which is not expected. There's a rose that's too tight, another rose that has a crease in the center. Now, I didn't take these pictures. What I did, I told my internet browser, show me a bunch of pictures of rose blooms, and it did. Showed me dozens, and I went through and picked these out. And so these are pictures that somebody, I don't know who, somebody, for some reason, had posted on the internet. I don't know why they posted them, but I don't think they posted them because they wanted to show form faults in rose judging. Most likely they said, look at the beautiful rose I grew. I'm proud of it. And they are beautiful roses. Don't let the fact that you know about form, substance, color, size, so on, spoil your appreciation of the roses. No rose is perfect. Enjoy them all. So here we see the Jasper Crane Rose Garden in Wilmington, Delaware. Peggy Martin on the arbor. And here's some of the roses in bloom. Enjoy the roses. Stop and smell the roses. I know sometimes it's not convenient to stop and smell the roses, but when you can, remember to stop and smell the roses. Thank you. Questions?
Is anybody still there?
We're still here. And Bruce, I'm gonna move you over here just 1 second. Just got to put on there. All right, Bruce. If you have any questions to my attendees that are still here, you can raise your hand. I will try to call upon you. And then we'll get Bruce to answer your question. And the first person that I see up that has a hand raised up is Carolyn Sayer. I'm going to unmute you now. I hope I said your name correctly. And then you're going to have to unmute yourself. And you'll be able to ask Bruce a question. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, Bruce. Nice presentation. What was the name of the rose on the arbor of the last picture you just showed us?
That's Peggy Martin. That's the rose that survived Katrina. It took about 3 years to cover that arbor. We were surprised about how quickly it did. Of course, it's only a spring bloomer, but that was in spring, and it just covers the arbor. It's really attractive.
And another question: how did Shreveport fare the last hurricane?
Our garden did, yes, our garden did well.
Good.
It only had leaves down, little small branches, no big trees, and that was very strange considering we always lose a pine tree every time we have a good rain. So we're very happy.
Well, I'm from the Buckeye District, so I go to the Rose Park in Columbus, Ohio, which used to be the ARS Rose.
Right.
Love to visit there.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Enjoyed all of it.
You're welcome. That
Even
picture of,
Even the history points that were made on the earlier American Rose Society, also the English Rose Society.
that picture of the arbor was in the ARS magazine. I think last year we had an article about the Jasper Plain Rose Garden.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yes, we have Gail Trimble. I'm gonna unmute Gail. All right, Gail, you need to unmute your microphone as well.
No question, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next, we have Jerry Mahoney. So Jerry, I'm gonna unmute you. Jerry, are you there? Okay. I'll come back to you. Jack Seffel, I hope I said it right. I know my name's a tongue twister, so I try to make sure that happens. I've unmuted you. Go ahead, Jack.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I am a hybridizer. I've been hybridizing a long time. I live near Eureka on the Pacific Coast, Northern California. I'm the president of our local society. Does the ARS still have a garden that amateur hybridizers can send roses to be evaluated?
I'll pass that to either Bob or John.
I can answer that question. Whoops, my.
I thought you'd go down a couple inches.
Yeah, it's somewhat different than it was in the past, Jack. But we have a trial gardens going on at the American Rose Center, located around the Wind Sounds Tower, which are in the neighborhood. You know, they're like with commercial introductions, but it's open. If you send me an email, I can put you in touch with the individual in charge of it, and you can explore it with her further.
Used to be Carol Spears or Spires. Carol used to, I have sent 2 previous specimens for evaluation, and I dealt with Carol. Does that sound right?
Well, Carol works for us, but Bob will send you, if you'll reach out to Bob Martin, he will get you with the right person, but it's not Miss Carol.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Louis Arce. Louis, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Louis.
Yeah, I thought it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much, Bruce. I just wanted to find out where you found most of the, or what sources did you obtain the information for the presentation? I noticed you had a lot of prints of documents that were much older, printed centuries before, and I just wondered where you went for your research.
There are at least two online databases that have newspapers that go back into some of them as early in the 1700s. That they cost money to subscribe to these databases, but I was using them for some historical research on transportation in Indiana, actually. But they've been scanned, and so they're searchable. They're word searchable. The scanning's not perfect, and sometimes you get gibberish, but you can find a lot of things. I'll send you the information on them, Liz. Now, Library of Congress also has a database that's free, that's searchable, but they only have U.S. obviously, and the others have Australian and Canadian and British and other countries as well as the U.S.
I see. Okay, if you can send it to me by email or information, I appreciate that.
Okay,
Right, thank you.
All right, next I'm going to call upon Steve Campbell. Steve, I'm about to unmute you.
Hi, nice presentation, Bruce. I have a question that can only bring a vague and general answer. However, I was just curious as to whether you had any narrative about how over the years, over the decades, the weight of judging the various aspects of the Rose, you know, it all shifted. What is your overall feeling about how it shifted? And I was just curious about whether there was any narrative that you heard or saw in your research that showed why it shifted.
actually, no. I did not see any narrative. Well, if we went back to, somebody went down to Shreveport and went through, assuming they still exist, went through all the old records and all the board meetings and discussion, we might find that. I'm told that a lot of stuff was lost when they moved from Columbus to Shreveport. So, but John says there still is a lot of stuff there. So we might see why that was done. But no, there was really no discussion. It just here was the scale of points, and then it changed. I suspect that when we started, we didn't really have much in the way of these high-centered blooms like we do now. So, Bob, you have any comment?
Yeah, let me add to that, because I've done a great deal of research on that, and you can see it from the development of your point system. What has declined over the years is the emphasis on size. I mean, and, I attribute that to the point is the Rose show stopped being a watermelon show. I mean, the old watermelon shows, you were won by the biggest watermelons. And so you see from the earliest point scales that size is very much favored, in addition, not only the size of the bloom, but as Bruce mentioned, the size of the stem. So bigger was better. Although you may have noticed that comment that Bruce put up there with respect to Dean Hole's collection of comments about a rose being overgrown, and exactly how that fit with size is not altogether clear in looking at the past. But size has been downgraded, and the focus has become more on the bloom. Now, my take on it is because over the years we've come to recognize that a rose show is about roses and about the bloom, so that now we have 75% of our points are in the bloom as opposed to the size of the bloom or the size of the stem.
When I first started exhibiting, there were still exhibitors who were trying to get the longest possible stem, and these entries were referred to as telephone poles. I haven't heard that term used lately, but they used to refer to these ones, long stems and a little rose on top as a telephone pole.
So as we, related question, as we move forward with maybe fewer hybrid teas on the market and more shrub type roses, do you see the point scale being modified or evolving?
No. We've been using this scale now since 1971, and it's flexible enough. When you talk about form, it's, okay, how are you going to define form? And you define, obviously, the form of an old garden rose or a shrub differently than the way you define exhibition form for a hybrid tea. So it's the definition of what constitutes good form may change, but I don't see that the emphasis on form is going to change.
I would agree with that.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Bruce's comment on that, by the way. The point scale is flexible, and we've come to realize over the years. I mean, I'm an old hybrid tea fan myself, and so I love the hybrid tea form, but it is one form. And the decorative form, the Austin roses, now we call English style roses, the old garden rose forms, and so on. Those are all recognized forms, and I think we're getting better at judging them and understanding them. And they're just that form is just as important in judging, for example, shrubs and old garden roses as it is in hybrid tea form is to judging hybrid teas.
Next.
All right, I'm gonna call on Pam Bradley. That's who needs to speak next. Pam, if you'll unmute. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand earlier.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to say thank you, Bruce. That was a great presentation. And I wanted to ask, what was that website to download the guidelines for the judging roses?
You mean from the rose.org, from the ARS website?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's on the ARS website, I believe.
Yeah, it
Is
should
it,
be
is
under.
it, John?
Okay, okay, thank you. That's
And
all.
I'll that. Next, I'm gonna call Wayne Myers. Wayne? I'll keep you for a second. I will call you back, I promise, Wayne. What that is where you have two things in the same room that are hearing this. So I'll call back to you in just a minute and we'll switch over to Carmen, police. Carmen, go ahead. You need to unmute yourself. Carmen, are you there? Okay. I'm gonna mute you back, Carmen. I will come back to you. All right, let's see if we can get Wayne back on. Wayne, are you there? We still have an echo. Oh, all right. Gary Mahoney, I'll unmute you. Gary, did you have any questions? Okay. All right, we got another hand up. Catherine Brennan. Let me unmute you, Catherine. Now, if you'll unmute yourself as well, you can speak. There we go.
Yes, I'm from the Tanarchy District, and I want to commend Robert Martin and John Corcoran and everyone on this. I was wondering about Bruce's lecture. Would that be available, possible, on the website?
Yes, I plan on putting on with Bruce's blessing and stuff, so yes.
And thanks for getting the dog barking out.
I did.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Catherine.
yeah. The intent is to put that on the website. I'm not sure when it's going to go up, but the intent is to put it up there.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. I thank you for that. And thank you to everyone.
You're welcome. And, all right, now we're going to go to Terry Bergs. I'll unmute you. Okay, you'll have to also hit your mute button. There you go.
Hello, everyone. It's been kind of a long afternoon here on a beautiful Wisconsin day, finally, but I listened to all of you and you did just an excellent job. I just want to thank you so much for making this available to all of the members today. Really brilliant job. Bruce, I wanted to ask you a question. Here in the North Central District, we're a smaller district, mostly due to weather. And how do we encourage people to become judges when many people would just rather exhibit? And you really can't have one without the other. So how do you balance that?
I wish I knew. You have to convince people they should broaden their experience and do more for society, I think. Bob, you?
Yeah, Kerry, that's a long-standing problem. I mean, the exhibitors, the best exhibitors are the best judges. Most of the best exhibitors are good exhibitors because they prefer to exhibit rather than judge. I was between gardens when I decided to become a judge, and I'd already been an exhibitor for quite a few years. So, we try to do is encourage all exhibitors to be. I think you become a better exhibitor when you become a judge. When I finally went to become a judge, I learned lots of things, not the least of which is that I spent too much time screwing around with my roses at rose shows. And the judge comes up and looks at them in 15 seconds. And if the judge spent as much time looking at a rose as I did, it never would get done. So I became a better exhibitor by becoming a judge. And I tell people that become judges and then try to divide your time or do what you can. There's, interestingly enough, most of my judging, probably 80% of the judging that I've undertaken has been outside my own district. Because if I'm in my own district, it's probably because it's a rose show and I'm going to be showing at it. So, I mean, there are other districts that have tried to, address that in different ways. Pacific Northwest, for example, permits judges to judge in the shows that they're exhibiting in, and they're asked to step back when they encounter a class that they have entries in. And there's some, it's not really altogether clear that that's, a lot of exhibitors don't like that. And so whether or not that's a solution has to be looked at by an individual district. Other districts, like the Buckeye district, for example, will often have the judges, in the miniature section, be able to enter in the large rose section and vice versa, so that they can have judges who can exhibit and show at the same time. But it's a long-standing problem. There's no immediate solution to it because exhibitors like to exhibit, and the best judges are the best exhibitors.
I think Carolina District is doing what Buckeye District is doing as well. But you should remind people there's a judges class. If you're judging, you can always enter the judges class. Yeah, like Bob, I live in an area where if I go south into the Colonial District, it's before I have roses. If I go north into New York and New England, it's after my roses are done. So I can still judge and yet show in my own district.
That actually reminds me of one thing that I wanted to address, and maybe Bruce can address in the manual coming up. But when I went to judging school, it was said, and it's understood in our district, that it's in poor taste to ask to be able to be a judge. Now, if you're an apprentice, it's okay to ask and say, I'm available to judge. But if you're a judge, somehow you're supposed to keep the fact that you're available to judge a secret. And I don't get that. I mean, if, for example, I got a show coming up that I know that I'm not going to be able to show at for some reason or the other, it seems to me that I ought to be able to call up and email the chairman of judges and say, hey, I'd be available to judge that show, or judge a show that's outside the district. Let's say you're traveling outside the district and you see there's a rose show. Can't we just, send an email to the chairman of the judges or the show chair and say, I'm available, so that we can reach out and take opportunities to judge and pick up judges that might be available that we might not be otherwise thinking about.
I, as Joe and I, who are apprentice judges, and hopefully we'll be able to finish that next year, I'm glad you have decreed that 2020 is the year that didn't exist, Bob. I thought that was the best line of the afternoon. But I would like to be able to ask, as a real judge, not just an apprentice, to go somewhere in February and March and April when we have nothing but snow on the ground here, to go and judge roses. So I think that's an excellent suggestion, because I don't want to look like I'm pushing myself on people, but I would like the opportunity to see roses in other parts of the country. So that's a great suggestion. So I guess we just continue to be creative in this and figure it out.
A few years ago, I was surprised. I got a report from Florida for a apprentice judge in New Jersey. They apparently had spent the winter in Florida, and there was a show, and they went over and got to judge.
Great thing for us snowbirds.
You become a better judge if you judge in different districts. Roses grow differently in different parts of the country, and you don't really realize that until you travel around the country and see the roses. And to call upon a judge. I mean, I remember one of my first judging experience was in Ohio. And I walk up to Dublin, for example, which is a killer rose in Ohio, and in Southern California, it's the size of a walnut. So I mean, I was just stunned by this rose, and you get to see that, and I think you expand your judging and appreciation of roses by getting around, seeing roses elsewhere.
I totally agree. Thank you all very much for a wonderful afternoon, really, and congratulations, Bruce.
Thank you. John, next. Any
Yes,
more?
Wykoff. Yes, just one moment. I'll unmute you, Richard. Go ahead. Unmute yourself as well. Little microphone, Richard. There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just wondering. I'm up here in the Northwest District in Pasco, the Tri-City Society, and with a Walla Walla judge and a Spokane judge, we went over to Missoula. That was able to hold their show on July 11th. I wondered if you heard of any other places that actually were able to hold their show.
I know everything in the Northeast was canceled, so I can't speak for any other part of the country.
Okay. Well, it was really nice. We, had a scrounge for judges to go in since some, because of age and whatever health, couldn't attend. So we had to pull in some people from Las Vegas to come up and help get enough judges in there. But it was a good show.
Yeah. Right. I'm gonna try one more time to Wayne Myers. Wayne, I'm gonna try. See if we can get without. There we go, Wayne. Are you there? Yeah, I've got him muted. And let's see here. That's the last of the raised hands that I see. So there are no more questions that I can see. Okay, go ahead.
I think Ray Martin has a question.
Okay. If you could ask that question.
How about judging in different countries?
That would be up to the country, whether or not they would permit you to judge or not. We've had people from the UK come to our national conventions, and we permitted them to judge with the team of 3. And so it would be, and we had a woman in our Penn Jersey district whose husband was assigned to Australia for a while. And I don't know if she tried to judge there or not, but she talked about going to shows in Australia. So that would be up to the country. If you were there, you could go and say, look, I'm an ARS accredited Rose judge. I think the standards are pretty similar. Of course, the British tend to go with boxes rather than specimens, but other than that, form's form.
We've got Jolene on here. Let me call on Jolene Adams. Jolene, if you'll hit the microphone button, you'll be able to speak. There you go.
Thank you, John. The question about judging in foreign countries, et cetera, as long as the American Rose Society is a member of the World Federation of Rose Societies, all of our judges are eligible to judge at rose shows abroad. You can be invited. If you know someone in that Rose Society, let them know you're available or you're going to be traveling to their country. Better yet, go through the International Judging Chair. You can find out who that is if you go to the World Federation Rose Society website. Just put it in Google and it will bounce you right there. It'll tell you who the judging chair is, and you can get an assignment that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolene. All right. I don't have any more hands up, so I'm going to hand this back to President Bob Martin for the last few closing words.
Well, I guess my final words are to say thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for the long patience. Congratulations to the many winners, particular congratulations to Bruce Monroe for the Klima medal, the gold medal, and for the excellent presentation. And I I related to several of the things that he had to say. I laughed because I was there. I remember the comment about Rose's about challenge classes being a creature of the show schedule. In fact, I thought I wrote that, but I guess he did. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a big pleasure to be able to share this with you today and carry this about. We'll try to get this information out onto the website and through our Facebook media. I see that Tom Mayhew has already put up some information about it, and so we'll continue to share it. Be happy to do so. Everybody stay safe during this pandemic, and remember that rose gardening is a very safe activity and a wonderful thing to do. Thank you very much.
All right, who's going to pull the plug?